This is Buckeye legend Mike Tomczak, and you're listening to OVE Podcast. It's Ohio versus everyone. Subscribe, like, listen, and follow, and don't forget your comments. Here's the show, and remember to always wash your BALLS.
Wash your balls, Mike Tomczak. Wash your balls. It's the OVE Podcast. Ohio versus everyone on this Thursday. Some kind of breaking news if you're just tuning in and haven't turned on any website or checked on any social media site. I'm the Torg. Hear me mornings, QFM 96. He's Sam Groom. Subscribe, like, follow, share. You got that little thumbs up icon on YouTube? Click it right now. Be a pal for Torg and Sam. Breaking news, Sam. Dan Lanning, 6-year deal with Oregon, $11 million per year. Remember, we were talking about Ryan Day's contract, and you were unsure about, well, you pay him that much. I mentioned it's just the going rate, dude, because you got to keep these guys away from the pros. You got to pay them, unless you just do a constant recycle of coaches.
Well, and it's weird, too, because Oregon traditionally was kind of a stepping stone or a transition where you would go and get a job there. You get paid, obviously, tremendous amount of money and notoriety behind the program, but coaches would traditionally just treat it as a stop to a bigger program. So maybe it's the Phil Knight money flooding into the program. Maybe it's Oregon wanting to take a step, or maybe it's just Dan Lanning on wanting to build Oregon into a powerhouse. He's locked up there now, making $66 million over the next 6 years, and it doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
Yeah, he's going to be the 4th highest paid coach in college football. I think you nailed it there with the Phil Knight stuff, because listen, if you told me, I hope this never happens, but it may, Torg, you have terminal cancer and you're dying, right? I would try to make good. Like, I'd be, man, I really want to go to heaven. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I really want to. So you kind of make amends, time's short. You kind of want to do what you want to do. I think for Phil Knight, and I want to say, Sam, that Phil Knight is 85 years old, and I'm Googling it right now. But when you're 85 years old, when you get up in the morning, it's a win, right? I mean, he's 87 years old. He just turned 87. So I'm sure every day Phil Knight wakes up and says, geez, I'm happy to be alive. Hey, little kids in China, start making more shoes. I picture that. Every day he wakes up and goes, oh, my heart's still beating. Someone get China on the phone. I got to make sure those little kids are making more shoes. But at 87, Sam, he wants to see a championship. And his best way, he probably figures it like this. If I get into the NFL season and I start doing well, because Oregon, from reports, spent $40 million on this roster, right? So you assume they're going to be really good. Spending $40 million on that roster. The NFL is going to come calling because Dan Lanning, Ryan Day, everybody is sick of the NIL bullshit. So you have to pay your guys enough so they can eat the BS and go, it's tasty, right? So you got to pay these guys money or they'll leave to the NFL.
I think the real thing with Oregon football is going to be how long is there this emphasis on it after Phil Knight's gone? Because I think it's going to be a situation like, and I should know this stat given what I do, but, family wealth, generally speaking, never lasts beyond one generation after, whoever made all the money or set all the estate plan up. Typically only lasts at one generation. So I want to know with Oregon is what's going to happen to the athletic facilities, the emphasis put on the football team and the athletic programs when Phil Knight's no longer around. Because don't get me wrong, I'm sure he's going to set the money up with an endowment. some form of trust that's going to continue to funnel and flood money into the athletic department and the school at large. But eventually that's either going to run out or the money is going to be transitioned elsewhere.
Yeah, his kid's Travis, and he went to Portland State, but he grew up outside of in the mansion, Phil's mansion. So I'm sure that Oregon is in his blood, but he didn't go to Oregon, right? So you wonder, like, and he's an animator. He does like animation, and Phil actually went to Oregon and then Stanford, which is a big difference. So his kid's 51. I'm sure there might be something in his will where they give a certain amount to the program for a certain amount of time. But I don't know when it comes to, hey, Uncle Phil, we spent $20 million in NIL last year. Can we have another $20 million this year because Ohio State bounced us in the second round? Maybe there's something in there, Sam, where he does give money to the school, but how long is that going to last? Like you said, you're right. Like, all right, maybe he puts 10 years of $20 million a year into the NIL. Well, what if prices go up? And then the norm is $50 million a year for a college football team, and that just simply isn't good enough. So, yeah, I think 87 years old, what Phil Knight has done is unbelievable. I have not watched the Matt Damon show or the movie about Nike. What is it? The Rare Air?
Called Air.
Yeah, Air. Haven't watched it. Don't care to watch it. Don't need to watch a movie about Phil Knight and starring Matt Damon. But maybe it's a great movie. I don't know.
Well, the other thing, too,
you're right. The money will run out eventually. He's 87.
Maybe what he could do is he could set it up organizationally where the money, he donates some money to the school, name a building or two after him, but it's organizationally, it's the money or the assets coming from Nike, the corporation, instead of from the family estate and family trust. So it's just one of those things that I'm interested in because, Oregon in the last 20 years has kind of really been put on the map. I'm curious to see when the benefactor, the benefactor, the guy with all the money funding all of this, when he's no longer here, what's going to happen to that program? What's going to happen to that university? Because did you know that Animal House was filmed at Oregon in Eugene?
I did not.
Yeah, so that's where they filmed it. So obviously they're going to show you some different spots of campus, and it was 50 years ago probably at this point when they filmed that movie. But Oregon really wasn't a destination athletically until the last 20 years. So yeah. I'm curious to see when the well runs dry, what's going to happen to that school and their athletic department.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to throw a name out in the past. I could be wrong on this too. Someone in the chat can help me out. They really didn't start getting big until the mid-90s and Mike Bellotti, correct? Was he the guy who kind of took them?
So he was the first, and then Chip Kelly followed him, correct?
He coached from 1995 to 2008. So who took over at 2009? Was that Chip Kelly?
Yeah, had to be.
Oh, yeah, he was the offensive coordinator. So, yes, Chip Kelly took over. But I think Chip Kelly really built that team to new heights, don't you think? I mean, Mike Bellotti had a 10-2, 11-1 season in the early 2000s. But for the most part, I mean, look at Mike Bellotti. 6-2. I mean, Mike Bellotti kept his job. This is how he started in the mid-90s, Sam. 9-3, 6-5, 7-5, 8-4, 9-3. Right? Then he went 10-2, 11-1, 7-6, 8-5, 5-6. I mean, a coach would get fired after that, right? 10-2, 7-6, 9-4, 10-3. So yeah, they were a power, but they weren't really a power until Chip kind of came over the past maybe 15 years. So maybe it's they haven't, and you're right, they've been a stepping stone job where people.
Well, I would say they also kind of I give Oregon a lot of credit, and I also give Mike Leach a lot of credit for essentially revolutionizing offensive football. Like there was a renaissance of college offense, of college football offenses during that time to, far more spread, a lot more up tempo, even to the point where it's now kind of bled into the NFL game. But you're also starting to see maybe the pendulum swing back where some of these teams aren't necessarily going as fast or as spread out as they used to. But I will say that program or Chip Kelly and his time at Oregon and Mike Leach really revolutionized college football offenses at that time to the point where it's still very much a part of the game today. I mean, what was the shotgun? I remember the line from Remember the Titans. They're running the shotgun. Who do they think they are? The New York Jets? Like, I think it was that revolutionary to the game and to see what it has kind of evolved into, and the athletes that we're now getting at the skill positions and even at quarterback in the game today. Like, I don't think we give those guys enough credit for what they've done. But the problem is, if you're Oregon and you're a fan of Oregon, is yeah, maybe they revolutionized college football offenses, but they still haven't delivered a title of any kind. So yeah, I am curious. Like I said, do I think Dan Lanning's worth the money? Absolutely. I think they've really kind of actualized their NIL. Obviously, they've got a whole lot of money and a lot of allure in the Nike brand behind them. But good for Lanning. Do I think he deserves it? Probably. Like you said, with the fourth highest paid in college football, probably behind. So Kirby, Ryan Day, and Dabo.
Yep.
Probably. Yep. So I think getting paid a little bit more than Sarkisian. So yeah, good for him, man. I think it's good for Oregon and the program to see a guy that actually wants to stay there instead of treat the program like a stepping stone to the NFL or to a bigger brand, blue blood brand in college football.
Yeah. Where do you rate him though? Highest paid coaches. Where do you think he rates though for coaches?
Are we talking career? Or are we talking today?
No, just today.
I'd say he's probably third behind Day, but no certain order. Day and Kirby Smart. I'm also say that maybe Kirby Smart's maybe losing the edge just a touch. I think this is going to be a big year for them. I want to see what they're able to produce because last year's Georgia team, offensively and defensively, was a little atypical for his style of program. Obviously, they had a pretty rough schedule and a gauntlet that they had to run through during the regular season. But I don't want to discount that in any stretch. But I think Dan Lanning, as far as where we stand today, based upon recent results, he's probably the third best coach in college football.
Here's the thing about Dan Lanning, and I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but I want to point this out. Okay, so not last year, but the year before, right? He had some you could blame those two couldn't you look at those two Washington losses and say that's on you, bro? Don't you look at those two games, the two losses he had against Washington, and go, that's kind of on Dan Lanning?
Yeah,
right.
He had what I would call the what's the head coach at for the Lions, Detroit Lions?
Dan Campbell.
He had a little Dan Campbell brain farts where he was maybe being a little too aggressive with his play calling or doing a fake punt on your own 20, that kind of scenario.
Yeah, agree. And so I wonder. And then this year, we give him credit because I think he outcoached Ryan Day, obviously, in that game there. But they were at home. What Buckeyes committed, if memory serves me correct, we committed 2 turnovers. And then there was still Will Howard thought there was a second left. So being that we played one of our poor games up until Michigan, right? It was still a 1-point game, a loss at home. So you did everything right. Ohio State did not everything wrong, but kind of did everything to keep you in that game. Do you know what I mean?
Defensively, that was Ohio State's anomaly for the year because the defense didn't play like that all season. That was the one game.
So does that one win against Ohio State catapult him to the top 3? I guess when the game is losing, who would you rather have coach let me put a different question for you. Because I think as a big name coach, if you put Lanning at Oregon and Marcus Freeman at Oregon, I'll take Lanning. But if you were to take like Minnesota Gophers and put Lanning and Marcus Freeman there, I think Marcus Freeman will get more out of that team.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon's certainly going to benefit a lot. And Dan Lanning's legacy is certainly going to benefit a lot from the amount of money that is behind that program. But, I mean, to me, it's kind of like the dog chasing its tail. Like eventually, it's the chicken or the egg. Is it the fact that Dan Lanning's a really good coach and a really good fit for Oregon? Or are we kind of knocking Dan Lanning a little bit because he's got so much money backing his program? I don't know. That's a fair question. But again, I don't fault him at all for signing this deal and sticking around there, being able to read the tea leaves of what's going on around the country at other programs, knowing that he's got this NIL and what seems to be an endless amount of money behind it. He could basically go out and get whoever the hell he wants.
What is the best coaching job? Meaning, because to me, a coaching job isn't just the program, but it's how your NIL is set up, right? I forgot who I was talking to about this. Me and King Rich were talking to Jerry off the air about Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame, where eventually Marcus Freeman will leave because they don't have the NIL setup at Notre Dame like the other schools do, right? But when you talk about NIL setup, I might put Oregon, I'd put Texas 1, Oregon 2, and Ohio State 3. So, yeah, I don't blame him staying around just from I don't think he has the same type of problems that other university has. In fact, I would say with Phil Knight at Oregon, they have less problems than Ohio State does. Because you have an endless supply. You have a guy with endless supply of money.
I like your Texas and Ohio State there. I would say that Georgia's probably above Oregon in my book. But my question would be, and kind of like with Alabama, I always asked, is the success of Alabama, is that the prestige of the program, or was that the GOAT head coach of college football? I think more of that was actually Nick Saban than it was Alabama football's program. So I kind of had that same question about Georgia. Like, Georgia had won some natties in the past, but largely couldn't get over the hump against Alabama until Nick Saban left. Like, even in their 2 national championships, I believe they were, was it 1-3 against Alabama when they had to play them, or 1-2 maybe in those 2 years. So I have questions there, but I would probably
Didn't
still
they beat them
put.
twice in a year? Didn't they beat them and then they beat them for the championship?
I thought they lost in like the SEC title and then played them in a champion. It was one of those weird, or they played them in the regular season and then they beat them in the SEC title game. I can't remember, but the only thing I would say too is, obviously we've talked about this in the past, how NIL hubs largely don't revolve around the SEC where these schools are. Like, Athens, Georgia has Atlanta, which I would say is a thriving metropolis when it comes to businesses and NIL and money. But by and large, there's really no other team that's revolving around a thriving economic epicenter. So Eugene's out in the middle of freaking nowhere in Oregon, but they got Nike money. So, maybe you are right. Maybe Oregon is a step above Georgia. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems like they don't have the problems. By the way, Kirby Smart's record against Alabama at Georgia's 1-6.
Yeah, so I mean, he obviously had to beat them one time in a big game, but we talk about Georgia as if they're this behemoth, right? And again, now that we've kind of seen the leveling and or maybe some parity across college football with the new NIL rules and transfer portal rules and recruiting rules that maybe gave the SEC teams a little bit of a leg up over the rest of the country in years past. I'm curious to see what and how teams like Georgia, teams like Alabama are going to respond next year, or a team like Texas Tech, who has a multi-billionaire backing their football program right now. If we can see them ascend to, Texas status or Texas A&M status, given the environment that we're in, I think the issue you're going to run into, for programs like that, is before they can really get to that mountaintop when it comes to blue blood status, I think the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath them, and the college football landscape is going to be changed completely once again before they can really actualize what the amount of money that they have backing those programs.
Yeah, the thing with Dan Lanning too, remember, he was the defensive coordinator with Kirby Smart, so it's not like he's calling the defense, right? So we got a guy who's also kind of calling his own defense for the first time at Oregon. And we saw that against Washington and Michael Penix, they gave up a lot of points. Against Ohio State, 2 games, they gave up a lot of points. So you got a question, too, when it comes to defensive play in big games, right? Because Oregon, what was the knock on Ohio State and Ryan Day? That they can beat all the small people, but when they play someone who's got the same level of talent, it's going to be a struggle, right? When it comes to, I got to outcoach them. You could kind of say the same for Dan Lanning from the standpoint, all right, Washington, similar talent, that good receiving core there. The year that they went to the playoffs, Dan Lanning was 0-2 against them. This year with Ohio State, great coaching job by him. We talked about it on this podcast. But then when the lights were shining bright, they got thumped by Ohio State. So you got to kind of ask, and their offense got thumped. So you got to ask, is Dan Lanning a product of Oregon, like you just mentioned, or is he a product because he's a really good coach? That's something that will be answered pretty soon, because the buyout remains the same on his deal, by the way. We should point that out. The contract went up. The buyout remained the same.
Well, we talked about this during the season. Oregon struggled in the first 2 weeks of the season. They struggled with Idaho, only beating them by 10, and only beat Boise State by 3 points. So at home. So again, we asked the question: Is it Oregon? Is it the money that's backing the football program, or is it Dan Lanning? And I think it's one of those scenarios where I think it's all of the above. I think Dan Lanning's a good coach. I think he's a great coach for that environment, and I think having Nike in your back pocket is never going to be a bad thing in college athletics.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a power program with plenty of support. I don't know the inner workings there, but when you lose in the second round, their first game of the playoffs, and then I don't know if this figure is exact, and I think we'll find out more in this season, but there's reports that it's up to $40 million. Anytime a school, hell, I thought it was impressive of Ryan Day getting $20 million out of people. When Ryan Day's saying I need 13 to 15 million to keep this program at the top level, and then he gets 20 million, I was like, wow, we really want to win. And then for Dan Lanning to get upwards to 40 million, right? That's super impressive of what they're doing there. Let's take a quick 1-minute break when we come back. And a Buckeye legend, we could call him a legend, a Buckeye legend retires from the Bengals. And Sam, the Browns fans are crying. They're sad today. It's a sad day for the Browns. I don't get it, but I don't have an emotional attachment to this player. And Deshaun Watson got more money. Next on the OVE podcast.
We go to war for you.
At Schuerger Trial Attorneys, we don't back down. Accident? Call us today at 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com for a free consultation. Know your rights because results matter.
That's 877-WAR-FOR-YOU. 877-WAR-FOR-YOU or visit warforyou.com.
War for you. Warforyou.com.
Dan Robb Management has over 40 years experience in all aspects of payroll, processing checks, tax filing, W-2 and 1099 preparation. First-time customers get 50% off their first 3 months processing fees. Give them a call now, 614-297-1158 or denrobmanagement.com. The OVE podcast. Appreciate you. Remember, you got the thumbs up button. Hit like, subscribe, follow, share. Appreciate you. Remember the website, theovepodcast.com. It's easy to sign up and win a bunch of prizes, and we appreciate it. Sam, Nick Chubb has been basically told to go away by the Browns. I mean, Andrew Berry came out and said that Nick Chubb is going to explore free agency, but from you read the tea leaves, I don't think they wanted Nick Chubb back, correct? So a lot of Browns fans are upset at the organization for not having him back, but to me, I get the emotional attachment of a player. We've all had favorite players. Who's your favorite Blue Jacket player?
Ever?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I'd have to think about that.
Guy you really like?
Yeah. Shit, I don't know. You put me on the spot. Matthew Olivier. How about that? That's topical.
Right. If the Blue Jackets said to Matthew Olivier, hey, we're going to let you go, and you knew his play, let's say Matthew Olivier had like 1 goal and 3 assists this year, and you'd go, your brain would say, well, he doesn't have it anymore, but your heart, because you like him, you'd be pissed off, correct? Mm-hmm. I think that's what the Browns fans are going through with Nick Chubb, because there's a lot of negative comments on social media about how stupid are the Browns. He wants to be there and you're letting him go. Folks, I'm not biased at all when it comes to the Browns and Bengals. In fact, I hope you both win. I mean, winning is good for this podcast. Winning is, well, and losing too. Being suck ass is good for us too. Either way, pick one. You both suck. But it's good for business. I got a lot of friends that are Browns fans. My wife is a Bengals fan. I mean, I've had favorite players that have gone away. I remember my favorite quarterback when I was a little kid was Tommy Kramer, and we let him walk away, and he went to the Saints. And the next year, the Saints played the Vikings, and Tommy Kramer got into the game, and Tommy Kramer got destroyed. But the fan in me wanted Tommy Kramer to light up the Vikings because they let him go. I get the emotional attachment, but much like Tommy Kramer, Nick Chubb can't play anymore. And it was the right move for the team to let him go. Because if he re-signed, and you signed him, the Browns signed him for like $2 million, you'd be pissed off. They're lowballing our favorite player. He's not worth $2 million. He's
You know
not.
You know what I think this is, and why I think Browns fans are so pissed off at this? It's not necessarily about Nick Chubb per se. It's more about the fact that their decision-making process with Deshaun Watson has now cost Cleveland its two favorite players. It's Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett. I think that's the issue. Like Nick Chubb's a part of this, and maybe it's Cleveland Browns fans saying he's my favorite player, and like you said, not being able to objectively look at this and say he's not what he was 2 years ago, and likely will never return to that type of form ever again. And he's been doubted before after major injuries.
But not at 29 years old.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to put it all together. I really think it's more about the fact that Deshaun Watson is essentially costing you your favorite two players, your two faces of the franchise, because Andrew Berry's a dumbass.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they just redid. We'll get into what they did with Deshaun Watson. So they're actually under the cap by $12 million, right? But he's also 29 years of age, so he's come back from injury. But if you watched him play last year, Sam, I don't think he is just being honest, I'm not hating. I don't, and he's the third, but when it comes to history of the Browns, I think he's ranked third on all-time running list. I just don't think he's an NFL caliber running back, and I don't think he's even a third-string running back. I just didn't see it last year. I saw a guy who wasn't quick, didn't have the same power. I just didn't see it. Now, you could blame the offensive line. Maybe he goes to a different team and he's rejuvenated and he's a year removed from the injury and it's 2 years since he got hurt, or a year and a half, whatever, to be in the starts. Maybe I'm wrong. But I could just go off what my eyes tell me. And my eyes told me last year that Jerome Ford was a better – now, Jerome Ford, I believe, is a free agent too. I'm not saying Jerome Ford's the answer. I'm just telling you my eyes tell me Jerome Ford was better than Nick Chubb. Now, I don't think either one of them were good. But I'm just telling you, if I had to pick who had a better season, Nick Chubb wasn't good. So I get the emotional attachment to a player, but also, I mean, hey, you got the jersey, you can wear it. You could be mad at Andrew Berry. I think he's a dumb shit, but I don't think he's a dumb shit for passing on Nick Chubb.
I mean, there is still the outside chance that, and we've seen this in the past where players, like I always talk about hockey players and shoulder injuries. They may be able to come back, but that even though they're cleared and they've done the full rehab, they're still going to take some time to get their legs underneath them on the ice. They're going to take some time to get the strength back in that shoulder and just go out there and get into the flow of the game and be able to respond from a hit. I think that the mere fact that Chubb was able to come back after how catastrophic that knee injury looked, I do think there is still an outside shot that he is able to come back and produce in the NFL. Do I think it's going to be to the same level he used to? Absolutely not. I mean, I can't imagine how many years that leg injury is going to add to his body, and he is 29. The NFL does not like giving contracts to 30 running backs where their age starts with a 3. So, I think Andrew Berry is probably playing the odds on this one and is probably making the best decision, even though, like I said, his bone noir pick of Deshaun Watson is now likely costing you your two favorite Cleveland Browns football players.
Yeah, and the news there is news on Deshaun Watson. He restructured his cap, and they basically – here's the thing, folks. It's not costing Deshaun Watson anything. He's getting the money up front. They're just kicking the can down the road, so there's going to be more penalty on your salary cap when it's all said and done. So Deshaun Watson gets more money, meaning that he gets it now. So his money's not going to change. It's just you're going to have 18 against the cap a few years from now, I think 2027 or 2028, and then it's another 8 or so at the end. They're going to kick the can. He's guaranteed $72 million next year. If they keep him, they will do this again, where they pay him a bonus. Now the Browns are $12 million under the cap. What does that mean? That means $5 million will probably go to draft picks, or depending on where they're picking, maybe it's $7 million. So it gives them like $5 million of wiggle room. Now there's other guys that they can kick the can down the road and give bonuses to and void out the contracts down the road that they can do. So they could still get money to, Gardner Minshew was released. He that's probably your quarterback next year. So there's still things that they can do to get better. But you need running backs. You need backup tight ends. You need a receiver. You need a quarterback. We know that. You need offensive line depth. You need some defensive line depth. You need some they need a little bit of everything. And so at least today we know that the Browns can get, at least we know the moves the Browns had to make to get under the cap, and that was getting Deshaun Watson's deal done. And why wouldn't he do it?
Well, and the league year is getting ready to start. Correct me if I'm wrong here very soon. And the NFL, I do believe, has a hard cap. So you structurally have to be under the cap when the new league year starts. So that is why they are making these moves, in order to make sure they are under that hard cap when the new league year starts.
Bengals made some moves. Well, a player made a move, and they were going to release him anyway. I think he saw the tea leaves. Sam Hubbard, who hurt himself towards the end of the season, he retired. Second round pick, playoff hero, maybe didn't live up to what they thought. Scored a touchdown from Joe Burrow last year, but he was going to be a cap casualty anyway. Coming back from a surgery, great career from Sam Hubbard. And again, more money for the Bengals. And I'm kind of doing the math, Sam. They're going to, if they want to re-sign Hendrickson and they want to sign Chase, they can do so now. Maybe re-sign T. Higgins if they want to go more years. I don't think he's going to take a pay cut. I think he'll be fine signing the tender. But are you comfortable with the Bengals just kind of running it back with the same team with draft picks? Because that's kind of where they're heading unless they make other cap casualties.
I said it during the offseason last year, the albatross around the Bengals football team is not going to be their offense. It's going to be their defense. And until they make some substantive additions and changes, not just a defensive coordinator, to their defense, I don't know that they're going to get to the promised land. Yeah, they may creep in or sneak into the playoffs, but that doesn't mean you got to have a defense. You're not just going to be able to outscore everybody 45 to 41 in every game in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. I still, I don't know that we ever did get to the poll question. I still don't know how they're going to make this work. I really don't. And let's just say they do. Let's say they do re-sign Chase. They do get T. Higgins to stick around. They do re-sign Hendrickson. Okay, you missed the playoffs with all of those dudes last year.
By one game, and who knows how far you would have gotten. I think they felt there's almost an arrogance, which is good. I think there's arrogance and there's good arrogance, right? It's a bad arrogance.
There's arrogance and there's confidence.
Yeah. Well, me saying I'm a 10, that's dumb arrogance, right?
That's stupidity.
Yeah, stupidity. They always believed that they could just turn it on at any point, and when they did turn it on, Sam, it was too late for them, right? They had this you're right. They had this arrogance about them that they could just turn it on at any point and still make the playoffs. It ended up, biting them in the ass, but I like that. They were very confident in what they did. I think the confidence is still there where we believe, all right, we need these players. We need to have these players and we can roll it back. I just don't think, though, a lot of coaching can improve a lot of things. And I don't know can coaching improve bad tackling where you're in a position to tackle someone, you're alligator arming people. I just think that's poor play. I don't know. Maybe you look at it as, well, they weren't in the right position. I don't know. I look at the Bengals defense last year and those dudes just couldn't tackle. There were plays in games where you should have tackled that guy for a 2-yard gain. Instead, he gained 22. I don't know. Is that coaching or just bad players?
And I think all of that's true, but I think if we're looking at it from the standpoint of the salary cap, we talked about this last week. In 4 guys, Chase, Higgins, Burrow, and Hendrickson potentially, you're going to have what did we say it was? 60%, 50%?
52%, I believe.
52% of your entire cap, your pie of money given to 4 guys. What are you going to, the 48% of your cap space, how are you going to efficiently put a winning team on the field when you have to give 48% of your salary cap to the remaining 48 guys on your roster? I just don't see how they're going to be able to do it and field a winner at the same time.
No, I agree. Some of their moves were just bad.
I mean, like we said, last year in the offseason, bad defense, second worst defense in the 23 season. They signed 2 safeties. Okay.
And they thought that was the
and Pitt Hendrickson off at the same time.
Yeah. They thought that was the key. So they got issues. I think they're in a good spot, though. If, the problem is, Sam, is they work different than other teams where it's good and it's bad. Like Joe Burrow came out and said, well, I'll redo my deal, but he wants to do the voidable years, and they don't like doing that. He's the only player they've done that for, right? So it's a good thing that you could just drop players and get instant salary relief, and you're not wasting any dead money. So you're using all your cap money, right? It's like, all right, we got a certain amount of money, and we use all of it. Unlike other teams that come into a season with like $40 million of dead cap space, we don't do that in Cincinnati. The bad thing is, though, if they don't change their philosophy when you're in a situation where, all right, if you really do feel you're a Super Bowl team, then clear up space by doing voidable. Look at the Dallas Cowboys, Sam. They just, CeeDee Lamb and Prescott, they just redid deals and like cleared up like $50 million. Now, are they kicking the can down the road and adding voidable years? But a lot of that, though, the voidable years, like an example was Aaron Jones had $3.5 million of voidable years. He pushed the date. Vikings are going to re-sign him, and you just kick it down the road even longer, and teams do that. The Bengals just operate different. It's good or bad. But I think Joe Burrow's looking at it, Sam, as let's restructure my deal so we can sign people. And I think the Bengals are really hesitant to do that kind of stuff, where every team is pretty much doing it.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's that short-term relief, but it's going to come back and bite you in the ass at some point down the road. And maybe, you know what? Maybe they're the smart ones for doing that, because, I think delaying the inevitable in Dallas right now, kicking the can down the road with something is not going to deliver a Super Bowl, I think that's foolish. So, maybe the Brown family, and this may be the only time I ever say this, are the smart ones in all of this.
Joey Bosa got released. He's an all-time Charger great. Injuries have kind of taken his career and put it to a place where he doesn't want. I was on ProFootballTalk.com before the show, and their headline is "A Frenzy of Activity for Joey Bosa." Here's the headline: "A frenzy could be coming for Joey Bosa." Would you spend? Listen, I love Bosa. He's an all-time great for Ohio State. Dude won a championship, but 5 sacks in 14 games. He's been ouchy. I mean, he cannot play in a 4-3 defense. That is not his style. He's a 3-4 defense guy. Do you spend big money? I mean, I tend to believe there's going to be a big market for Joey Bosa. I just don't know if I'm the team that's going to go all in for Joey Bosa.
Well, we say the best ability of his availability, and both Bosa brothers unfortunately had that issue while in college, and it's currently plaguing their NFL careers. So I probably wouldn't unless the money's right, just because the fact I would view it as essentially flushing a bunch of money down the toilet, given the fact that he's oft injured. So, as much as I like both he and Nick, I just, it's hard to give those guys a big contract or a lot of money, knowing that in the NFL career, in their pro career, they are often unavailable via injury. So
Nick is the highest paid defensive player in the game, isn't he?
Chris Jones, maybe?
No, I think it's now Nick at
Okay.
34 million. And it'll be interesting to see, because a lot of people are tying him in.
Oh, that just got beat yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Max Crosby.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Max Crosby just beat him. A lot of people are saying the San Francisco 49ers to join his brother Nick. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he plays that down lineman defensive end role. I don't think it's but some guys can adjust, Sam. Some guys are that, 5 down lineman linebacker that Joey Bosa was, and some guys are the 4, like Myles Garrett. There was a lot of rumors, Minnesota and Justin Jefferson for Myles Garrett, which was a ridiculous rumor floating out there. But Myles Garrett doesn't work with that type of Danielle Hunter, who has been a really stud defensive end. He played 1 season of that role in Minnesota, and that's not for him. Certain guys can play that role. Certain guys can't play that role. It'll be interesting to see if Joey Bosa can play that role and be effective. Certain guys are just for the 4-3, and certain guys are for the 3-4. And that's how they operate, the smaller athletic guys.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Joey Bosa's at. But I think Joey Bosa wants to make another a run for the ring, Sam, and if money's not an issue, the 49ers are kind of in that position where he could take less money because he got paid and chase the ring and play with his brother again. But everybody, according to Mike Florio, he could go wherever he wants to go. He probably could because everybody likes pass rushers.
Yeah, edge rushers are probably the biggest commodity on defense nowadays, right?
Marcus Davenport 2 years ago got like $11 million from Minnesota, and he had 1 sack the year before. Out of potential.
Well, who was the guy that the Browns got from the Vikings thinking he was going to come in and light it up, and he just kind of shit all over the field, was never any good?
Oh, the linebacker Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
He was all right, but not like they thought. They
had much higher expectations for his ability.
Well, anytime the Browns get someone they think he's a super, they're the winners of the off season every year.
I don't know. I think the Bears are kind of taking that mantle.
Yeah. We got some Blue Jacket news. You want to talk Blue Jackets?
Yeah, let's do it.
Blue Jacket news coming up. Cavaliers, the first to clinch a playoff berth. And you mentioned Max Crosby, so I don't have to do that anymore. We're back in 60 seconds on the OVE podcast. Hey, it's Torg for Custom Air. You know, when it comes to my HVAC system, I don't trust just anyone. I trust Custom Air. These guys are fast, reliable, and they know their stuff. Fall's just around the corner, and now's the perfect time to make sure your HVAC equipment is running at its best. Don't wait until it's too late. Get ahead of the game. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my home, and neither should you. Visit them on the web at customairco.com and keep your home comfortable all season long. Custom solutions, custom comfort, Custom Air. Thinking of buying or selling a home? Give Lauren Torgerson a call with Next Home Experience. Lauren has been servicing the Columbus metropolitan area for 10 years. So whether you're a first-time home buyer, considering building, want to upsize or downsize, Lauren can help you with all your real estate needs. Get a free market analysis for your area and get started working on making tomorrow's dreams happen today. Call or text Lauren at 614-296-3952, 614-296-3952, or email at torgersonlauren@gmail.com. We are the OVE podcast. I'm the Torg. You hear me mornings, QFM 96. Download the app, baby. Sam Grooms, Blue Jackets, Don Waddell, the GM of the Blue Jackets, trade deadline. Heck, there could be a trade during this podcast. Don Waddell said Provorov is not going to get traded. He told a Toronto radio station that. I have no problem with that. I guess according to Portsline, the terms, they can't come to agreement, but he did mention in the interview that they are still going to work to re-sign him. They just haven't got it done yet, but they're still working on it. And if you know the Blue Jackets cap situation, next year they're going to have plenty of cap room. So if they do, I love the way the Matthew Olivier contract is staggered, Sam, because it's maybe too long, 6 years, $18 million, but they're front loading the first 2 years is the majority of the money. I like that because if for some reason it doesn't work out, that $2.4 million a year is not going to kill you.
Well, and as a percentage of the cap space that you have, or the overall cap that you have, it's going to dwindle or go down over time, not only in the amount that the AAV hits in that particular year, but because, as we've seen or talked about in the past, they expect the NHL salary cap to go up substantially over the next few years. So I actually think that's a great deal. And, you know, as far as the locker room guy, when it comes to Olivier, I love this. I think he's a fan favorite right now. But also, you've got all these young guys that aren't exactly the biggest bruisers on the planet. Kent Johnson, Fantilli's beefed up a little bit. Marchenko's a bigger dude, but you've got a bunch of these guys that you have to have some muscle out there to protect. I think Matthew Olivier certainly feels that role very good, and so will, once he returns, Goody, once he's back on the ice here, hopefully in the next week or so. So I like that deal. Regarding Provorov, I'm kind of mixed on this. If it's one of those situations where you know you're not going to resign him, I think you trade him. And I know we've talked about potentially disrupting the locker room. We can get into that. But my issue is if you know you're not, as currently constructed, going to win the Stanley Cup anyway, you owe it to the franchise, you owe it to this team in the future to go out and get whatever assets you can for that particular player, especially if you know you're not going to re-sign him. Now, I say that with the caveat that they're going to try to re-sign him, which I'm all for. I think he's a great guy for the locker room. But if you know for a fact it's not something you're going to be able to get done, you can't just let him walk out the door.
Don't you think, though, they owe it to this team after Johnny Gaudreau's death and is how close they've got to keep this group together? That no matter who it is, because they could trade Danforth, Sam, and get a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick for Danforth or who else? Who's the center, the 4th-line guy we got for Boston, who's from Columbus?
Well, JVR?
No. Well, we could trade him too.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's players, you could get JVR's having a good year. You'd probably get a 3rd-round pick. So I think there's guys that could be traded, but I think the way they're looking at it is you owe it to this team who has overperformed. No one thought this team would be where they're at, right? I thought they would be bottom 3 talent-wise in the league. But these guys have busted their ass. So I do think you owe it to the organization, but I also think you owe it to this team to let these guys play together. They corrected the room, and maybe, because when I talked to Erica Branson about this, he goes, no. You don't get rid of anyone, and you add, and it's God. Don't add to add. You got to add the right person. This room does not want a guy coming in here who's joining it for 3 months. They don't want that. They want to do this journey together. They lost a player, right? So they banded together, and they want to do this journey and see it out no matter where it goes, right? But I think when you trade a player and going through what they did, one thing Waddell knows, Sam, is that if I'm going to get to the Stanley Cup, it's going to be with this group of guys, right? So why not show good faith to these guys that, hey, we're not going to move anybody. We believe you can win, and enjoy the experience of going to the Cup. Because I think without Provorov, this team doesn't have a shot to go to the playoffs. I think that's a guy who could play left side, right side. I don't think they've given up on signing him. I just don't think they like it right now. And maybe he has the time of his life, right? Where at the end of the day, they both make concessions to each other. Provorov looks at it and goes, man, we had a good playoff run. I really like where we're going here. All right, maybe I drop the term a little bit. And then the Blue Jackets go, we go up. We'll meet you halfway. So I think it's kind of, when I talk to players on this team and I talk to guys like Jody Shelley and Aaron Portzline about this team and Steve Mears, I think there's a specialness of how these guys banded together. And I think it's one of those things that's bigger than hockey and bigger the on-air product. And these guys have done this so far together, so why break it up? Let them see, hey, go ahead, guys, we might not win the Cup, but let's give it a run and let it play out.
What I would say is this, is if they were competing for the President's Trophy or they were, sitting comfortably 2nd place in the Metro, I would agree with you. But again, I don't think this team right now is good enough to win the Cup. They're good enough to get to the playoffs and maybe win a series or two. They're not going to win the Cup. And is that not what the end goal is? And as maybe as a callous asshole as this particular point makes me, I'm not saying that you go out and you trade one of the core guys. I'm saying you go out, and if it's a guy is going to walk, or a guy that you can leverage for something better and make your franchise better for down the road, so you are competing for cups, or you have that type of team constructed, I think you owe it to the franchise. I think you owe it to the fans. And I think whether or not the players want to admit it, you owe it to the players to go out to improve your club. So I'm not saying you trade away a Boone Jenner or, like one of the keystones or the heart of the team. But I do think you owe it to yourself and to the team and to the fans to go out to do everything you can to make this team better. And if that means trading Provorov, I'm all for it. But again, I don't know
if they get better, though, if they trade him. I don't think they're better if they trade him. I think they're a lot worse.
You might be right. I'm all for keeping him around. And by all accounts, he wants to stay around because I believe his brother is committed to play at Ohio State in 27. So in 2 years. So I'm all for it. I think the guy's a productive player, and he seems to he's still young enough to where he's got the youth side on it, but he's also been in the league long enough to where he's a veteran.
Yeah. And
we've always complained about how bad the blue line is for the Jackets. So the guy is a defensive defenseman, and I'm here for it. I just think if you are so far apart, and if Waddell does come to the conclusion we're not going to be able to re-sign this guy, you owe it to yourself to go out and get something for him.
Yeah, maybe it's a year thing. Maybe it's he wants a certain amount of years. Maybe Waddell looks at his speed and look at what type of, how he plays and goes, well, that's a 4-year guy, and maybe at 32 he starts to slow down. We don't want to do the 5th year. And maybe they're playing a little hardball with the terms of the contract. Because when it comes to money, Sam, I don't think it's an issue. Like, what does he make? 4.5 right now, and the Kings are paying some of that. Like, what do you think a Severson makes? What, 6.4?
I thought he was higher than that, but
He might be. I think he's more.
I thought he was an 8.5 guy.
Was he? I think he's more valuable than Severson. Don't you?
Yeah, he signed an 8-year, $50 million deal. So 6.25 a year. So you were right.
So who? I think if Provorov looks at it and goes, listen, you guys signed that guy to 850, right? Mm-hmm. What's Severson's age?
He's 30.
Okay. I bet you he's probably looking at going, well, I want a 6-year deal, right? That's probably what he's looking at.
Severson's 30 is that year 2, I think. Yeah. And Provorov is 28.
I think he's probably looking at it as going, give me 6 and 8. I think that's probably where they're at right now. And Don is probably like going, well, I'll give you 8, but let's do 4. And maybe they settle for 5. Maybe that's just part of the negotiation. I bet you there's got to be something there where Don thinks they're close enough to where it's definitely a no, because he did say we're going to try to work this out and do it. I think Don Weidell's smart enough to know, Sam, where if there was no chance in hell of signing this guy, they would probably move. But I think
I completely agree. And I also think if you kind of read between the lines there, if there was no chance or Waddell didn't think they had a chance of getting him re-signed, he would have come out and said, hey, we're open for business. If you've got an offer, we'll listen to it. And if we think it's good enough, we'll pull the trigger. But the fact that he came out and said as definitively as he did, I think he knows a little better than we do as far as maybe how close they are to the actual deal. And they're just trying to maybe play a little hardball with each other. Because Provorov's not pissed off. Like, he seems to be happy and content. It's just part of the business. So, yeah, and I'm a believer. I know I was going to call him Waddle until he delivered. But based upon some of the additions and the moves that Waddell has made so far this year, until he F's me, I'm a believer in what he's doing. I will follow that guy into battle as far as the moves he's making, because he's made some great moves to this point.
He's a big boy GM. He's a big boy GM, man. I mean, fact of the matter, he's a big boy GM, and get used to it, because this is a legit general manager. One quick thing too about hockey, and then we'll get to our final story. Red Wings and Blue Jackets rating, what is it? 1.8 peak, 1.6 million watched.
Yep. Yeah, it was up 16% over the 2 stadium games that were on ABC last year. So keep in mind, you've gone from cable. You went from one of the big networks last year, easier to watch, to cable. And it was the most viewed stadium game ever on a cable broadcast. So I don't know what you could attribute that to. I don't know if you want to give that to the popularity of the Red Wings or the fact that you had a historic venue hosting an outdoor game. But obviously, or, it could have been coming off the Four Nations, the popularity of that. They hit this out of the park by all accounts.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And imagine this. So 1.6, and ESPN did everything in their power, 1, to make the broadcast crappy, and 2, make the lead up with no pregame show. They did a horrible. Imagine if you had a little buzz, some interviews, the storyline, setting the scene, some ramp up. You know how we used to do the countdown? Now we just say, we're coming, the show's coming, and we did 15 minutes today, and we'll probably do 10 minutes. I kind of goofed up and started early, but we're going to give you a 10-minute warm up with a graphic on the show before we start. The ESPN had it on ESPN News. You went to ESPN News like I did. Then you turned it back to ESPN at one point. They just screwed everything up with this broadcast. Imagine, Sam, if they actually had a pregame show. Mark Messier, PK Subban. He's a lightning rod for controversy, right? Steve Levy. Whether you like him or not, PK gets people talk about him. Where a lot of people, you're not talking about Mark Messier's broadcast. You're talking about PK Subban. So good or bad, he gets eyeballs, right? He creates attention. I don't mind him because I know what the shtick is, so it doesn't bug me. I actually kind of like the shtick. But imagine if they had a pregame show and a ramp up and some build for that game, what ESPN could do. That was an ESPN game, not an ABC game.
Absolutely. And locally, they showed it on Fox too, I believe. They showed it. They were originally going to show it on Who 53 or whatever that
really?
Network, and they moved it to Big Boy Fox locally.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so everybody was able to watch it here locally. Didn't have to go through the ESPN app or have any blackout or anything like that.
Have you ever heard the phrase "go woke, go broke"?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm not against cancel culture. I don't like it. If you like Bud Light, drink Bud Light. If you like My Pillow, it's a great pillow. That guy's crazy, but sleep on the damn My Pillow. I do not like cancel culture. I do not like saying I'm going to ban or not watch. You know, dude, I don't like Kirk Herbstreit. I watch ESPN. Now, I watched the Pat McAfee broadcast, but in the playoffs, I did watch Herbie in the final game. But Around the Horn, I think, is a classic example. They announced May 23rd after 23 years as their final show. They are the classic example of when they started getting political. And what is it, Mina Kimes started to get on her high horse, and Jamel Hill and all these people, they stopped talking about sports because the format's perfect for talking about sports because you're only 2 minutes on each subject. Everybody gets 30 seconds. It's move, 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 move. You can never get bored of that format. It's not like Kornheiser, right, in his show where they're talking 10, 15 minutes on a topic. This is a move show. But they got political. They started being stupid. And their viewership, why did their viewers stop watching the show? Because they were stupid and they got on there and they thought they could make a difference. Oh, I'm a reporter and I go on TV and I'll give you my political slant because I hate the right and I'll do it. I'm so I don't care. I just like making fun of people.
Yeah,
they went woke and they got broke.
You bring up earlier, and I think this is a great segue to this particular story, the difference between confidence and arrogance.
Yeah.
All of those blowhards, with an exception or two, I could tell you exactly what they're going to say when it comes to politics or a particular issue before they even start talking, just because I know you're never going to have any kind of dichotomy of thought. It's all going to be one particular group think by and large, especially when it comes to society or anything tiptoeing around something political. And I've said this in the past, and I firmly believe this. People do not turn into sports or sports-related shows to hear your thoughts on an election or global politics, any of that stuff, the economy. They want to escape all of that because they are trying to turn their brains off from real life for 30 minutes or 2 hours, however long that particular game or show is going to last. You can't meld the two because you're getting into exactly what people want to escape from. And like you said, I've always liked the format, but when you start trying to cross over into societal, preaching on society or politics, people are going to turn that shit off because they don't want to watch it. They want to hear your thoughts on sports.
Bomani Jones, Jamel Hill, Tim Collishaw, the guy from Dallas. Is Collishaw,
No, that's Woody Page.
No.
Woody Page is Denver.
Tim Collishaw's.
Tim Collishaw, yeah.
Yeah. Mina Kimes. They all got too political on the show, and they were regulars, and they made it unwatchable. No, listen, folks. I don't care where you stand. WNBA players shouldn't get paid the same as NBA players. When you say ridiculous crap like that, when you get political, when you bring race, when you race bait, right? When you race bait every day, all day, we're sick of that. People are sick of that. Look, follow Antonio Brown on X. He's sick of it. Players don't give a crap. They're their brotherhood in that locker room. You ever been in a locker room, black, white, it doesn't matter. You may think it's racial, but to them it's not. And the society's sick of it, but you wanna push that narrative, and guess what? You're all out of a gig now.
And so this is topical too, because over the last few weeks we have learned that what was Martin's first name and the incognito thing. I could tell you exactly what the panel had to say on that story.
Incognito,
yeah. And I didn't watch it, and it was all a bunch of bullshit. It was all completely fake. But I can tell you what every single panelist on that show had to say, probably verbatim, because I know how they're going to. I know what the narrative that they're pushing and how they all have this groupthink alignment, and then they're just going to sit there and beat you over the head with it without doing any kind of investigative reporting or actual journalism.
I can't remember that glad you brought that up, that incognito Jonathan Martin thing. Me and Common Man were interviewing either Barton or Hartline, who was on that team, on the air. And they said, it's a complete lie. We never saw any. I think it was Hartline.
Barton talks about it all the time. And he was in the room. Like, it had to be Barton.
Barton said it didn't happen. I was there. I'm in the room. It didn't happen. Right on the air, he goes, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Yeah, that was all BS. Yeah, you're right. Spot on. Can we send everybody home happy?
Let's do it.
All right. By the way, this is the last show of the week. We're back Monday. We're probably going to do 3 or 4 shows a week. We're going to do me and Sam Monday, Thursday, Friday, and then wrestling Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we're going to give you a lot of video clips. So if you're not watching on YouTube and want more of us, we're doing video clips. YouTube.com @Ohio versus everyone. Okay, look at this picture I'm going to show if you're on YouTube. If you're driving in your car listening on Spotify, please go to the YouTube channel so you can look at this douchebag. Okay, Sam, I'm gonna let you guess who is this. Chat, before I do this, hit like, because you're gonna like this. Hit every thumbs up. Just hit it right now. Trust me, you're gonna like this. Daddy's not gonna let you down. Just hit the thumbs up. All right. Who is that?
Is that Matthew Stafford?
No. But doesn't he look douchey, right?
JJ McCarthy?
JJ McCarthy. Doesn't he look like a giant douche?
Looks more like Matt Stafford than he does JJ McCarthy, but
Dude, that's my quarterback. Dude, look at him. Look at him.
Good for you.
What do you think when you look at him? What do you think?
He's trying hard.
Yeah, don't you think?
I mean, I need context. I'll
give you context. All right, I'll give you context.
I'm objective about this, and I understand that I hate Michigan. I think he's highly overrated, but where was this? Was this something like a passerby?
It's Harrison Smith, the defensive lineman.
Okay.
TJ Hawkinson, Joe from Impractical Jokers, and then JJ at the end taking a picture after a show.
Yeah, pretty douchey.
Okay. Just wanted to get your take. That's
awfully douchey.
Doesn't he look like a completely different person? Dude, he's filled out.
He's filled out. He's shaved, and he doesn't have, because he would always wear the eye black down, kind of like a mask. So, yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen him without the eye black. Or
he still looks like a boy, though, doesn't he?
Looks young. Let's put it that way.
Got to be a man to play in the NFL, son.
Yes, sir.
Good stuff, though. And glad you hit like, everybody. All right, we're back Monday. Have a good weekend. Oh, by the way, 2 quick things. Let's do basketball. I want to just ask you a question. Cavaliers first team to clinch in the NBA. That the Cavaliers are doing so well, going to have home court throughout. Sam, does that make you watch the NBA playoffs?
No,
so you won't watch the Cavs?
No.
Okay, I will. Not like every game, but I will watch like from second round on every game. All right. 2, basketball Buckeyes on the road against Indiana. Indiana is 18-12. Ohio State 17-13. Remember this about Ohio State. They beat some big heavyweights this year. They've lost to some bad teams. If Ohio State wins this game, and I think it's a must win, because they're on the Final Four bubble right now, do they get in?
If they win?
If they win, are they in?
I think the likelihood of them getting in are better than 50-50. So, yeah, probably.
If they lose, they're out.
See, I don't know. I think they still have the ability to go win maybe 2 games in the Big Ten tournament and maybe get in that way.
All right, well, we'll talk about it Monday after the game. Let's go Bucks. All right, we're back Monday. See you, everybody.
Later.
Well, of course. I mean, there's nothing better than being American. So, I mean, this is the greatest feeling. If you don't love it, leave it. USA, #1.